Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Radiantly Feminine podcast, where we embrace elegance, confidence, and the power of true femininity. I'm your host, Mookie. So whether you're looking to refine your presence, elevate your mindset, or even navigate relationships with ease, this is going to be your space to grow and glow. So sit back, relax, and let's unlock your feminine power together. Hello, my beautiful listeners. Thank you for pressing play, and I am so grateful that you're here with me today. For this episode, I want to talk about how connections are such a big part of our lives, whether they're romantic, platonic, familial, or even professional. But what if I told you that the way you build and nurture your relationships today could determine how they stand the test of time tomorrow? So, in this episode, I want to talk about how to future-proof your relationships, and not by trying to predict or control the future, but by grounding yourself in intentional practices and intentional communication and in self-awareness that will help your connections thrive no matter what comes your way. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, what does future-proofing actually mean? I'll tell you this, it doesn't mean making a relationship perfect. It's not about making sure no one ever messes up or avoiding arguments or insisting that people don't change, because we all do. We all go through those things. Future proofing is about building a strong foundation that can withstand changes, challenges, and especially growth. I want you guys to know that building a strong foundation for your relationship to sit on top of, it's important because it creates emotional safety for each other. When people feel emotionally safe, they're more likely to be open and honest and even vulnerable, and that safety will allow for deeper connections to form and real intimacy to form as well. And it's not just going to be a surface level connection. It also helps you to build trust over time with one another. You can't just give somebody your trust as soon as you meet them. And trust is not built through grand gestures either. Trust is actually built through consistency, communication, and accountability. I want you guys to know that a strong foundation will help to ensure that trust can grow and be repaired when needed. Also, when you do have that strong foundation, it will help you navigate conflict better and prevent resentment from building up. I'm someone who lets it be known when the connection is initially established that I do not like arguing. It's completely different from having a conversation. I just do not like to scream and yell to get my point across. And a healthy foundation makes it easier to approach disagreements, especially when you have compassion and a desire to resolve situations instead of just attacking one another. And I feel like that's what usually happens when you are having a heated argument. And this will actually help reduce misunderstandings and unmet expectations, as well as emotional burnout, which are all things that can lead to resentment if they are ignored. Now, having a strong foundation for the relationship to sit on also helps to support individual growth within the relationship, because whenever a relationship is built on mutual respect and honesty, that allows both people to feel free to evolve without the fear of losing the connection. And you don't have to stay stuck in old versions of yourself just to keep the relationship alive, because let's be honest, people change throughout time. Change is inevitable for everybody. So you can't expect your person to stay the same within the connection. But when you give each other that space to grow, then that allows for the connection to grow as well. So when you combine all of this like a house, if the relationship is built on something shaky, like infatuation or performance or avoidance or manipulation, it may collapse under pressure. But when it's built on mutual care, communication, and alignment, it can last even through those hard seasons. So think of it like this. When you won't wait for a storm to hit just to repair the roof. You take care of it when the sun is shining. And the same applies to your relationships. Someone I know, he lost his wife due to cancer a few years ago, and he told me the way of maintaining their good marriage was by appreciating each other in the bad times, not just the good. And I share that in this episode because I think that's important to remember, not just with marriage, but with all of your relationships. When things go sideways or not as planned or as you anticipated, It's important to remember what you're grateful for about that person rather than dwelling on the things that are negatively affecting you within that connection at this moment. And I do want you to know that if you only value someone when it feels good or easy, the relationship becomes transactional. But valuing someone through the bad times shows that the relationship is rooted in loyalty, grace, and depth, not just surface level comfort for you. So, to sum that all up, it's not only important but beautiful to value your relationships through the tough times. That's when love matures and loyalty is actually proven, and the connection actually deepens in the ways that the good times could never teach you. So, how do we build relationships that are actually going to last? I have 3 grounding elements that will help you to future proof any relationship today, no matter how old or new they are. I think these grounding elements will really help you just build that strong foundation or establish a new foundation if it's an old relationship. So, number 1, be emotionally honest. Say what you feel. Even if it's not the norm in your relationship, make it the new norm. And don't just focus on when things are bad, but especially when things are good. Because so many people wait until they're frustrated to finally speak up, but future proofing means you're practicing emotional transparency early and often. So the next time you feel like hiding your disappointment behind sarcasm or even silence, try saying, "Hey, something's been on my heart and I'd love to talk about it." Because that actually takes courage, and that's the kind of courage that will strengthen your relationships. Number 2, remain mutually curious. You know what kills relationships slowly? Assumptions. People who think they know someone so well will just stop asking questions. But future-proofed relationships are full of curiosity. You don't just ask your partner how their day was. You ask, "What's been inspiring you lately?" Or, "Is there anything you've been needing emotionally that I may have missed?" Whether it's a friend, a spouse, or even a colleague, people want to be seen and explored. Curiosity is the connection's fuel. And I think a lot of people just get comfortable in relationships and stop being curious with one another. And this is especially important in those older relationships. You want to remain curious because, like I said, people change throughout time. Change is inevitable. So you want to make sure that you are remaining curious in any dynamic that you're in. Number 3, repair and stop striving for perfection. You will mess up. You will misunderstand each other. You will go through seasons that feel super off, and that is okay. And what makes a relationship last is not perfection. It's the willingness to humbly come back to the table and say, "I see how I hurt you. I want to make this right. I didn't show up the way I wanted to, but I care about this and I care about you." That moment of repair, that's what builds trust. Now, I do want to talk about making space for growth because we briefly talked about it, but I want to just expand on that. Like I said, people change, people evolve, and so should your relationships. So, I would like to encourage you all to make space for each other's growth and stop expecting the people in your connections to remain the same or even change according to how you see fit, because that takes away from their autonomy. But when you sit back and give people space to grow, you're giving the relationship space to grow and evolve as well. And relationships without growth can cause resentment to build. If one person is growing and the other one is stuck, or if either partner feels limited, tension can and will rise. So, in other words, when you make room for growth, that will prevent emotional stagnation and that silent disconnection. Let's say you met someone when you both were at the same stage in life, but 5 years later, your values have shifted, you're more self-aware, you want different things now, but that doesn't mean the relationship has to end. But it does mean the dynamic might need a shift a little, because future proofing means having those check-ins, not just for updates, but for alignment to make sure you guys are still on the same page. You can ask questions to determine if you're still showing up for each other in ways that feel good, and trying to just ask what they need from you, since people's needs tend to change over time. And these types of questions are a whole love language in my eyes. Now, what I'm trying to say is growth actually keeps the connection alive. When both people feel supported and becoming their best selves, the relationship doesn't stagnate, it deepens. There's curiosity now, there's renewed admiration, and there's shared progress. Even though you guys, no, I don't think that anybody is meant to walk the same path of life, but it's so beautiful that when two people can be in a relationship or a connection and still be able to walk their paths and still stay in their own lanes. So yeah, I just wanted to share all of that because that type of growth builds resilience. A relationship that's able to bend with the new change is more likely to withstand life's storms, whether it's career changes, personal setbacks, or even emotional healing. And this will allow you to stay aligned over time. So like I already said, when you have those regular check-ins, it will help you realign your values and goals with one another, which ensures you're still building something together and not just coexisting with one another. Now, you all should know by now that boundaries are super important when you are trying to stay in your feminine energy, and you cannot future-proof a relationship if you're constantly betraying yourself inside of it. So that means if you're overgiving or abandoning your own needs or tolerating behaviors that feel misaligned, the relationship might survive if you guys really wanted to, if you guys want to stay together, but it will never thrive. You protect the future of your relationships by respecting the present version of yourself. So yes, set those boundaries, be honest about your capacity, start speaking up when something feels off, and honor your own intuition. And this also means that you cannot perform peace. You have to protect it. And I say that to say you have to stop suppressing your emotions just to keep the peace, because it's not your peace that you're keeping at this point. You're not protecting your own peace, you're protecting somebody else's at the expense of your own. And part of protecting your peace is being willing to be held accountable yourself. Future-proofed relationships are not one-sided. They're built on mutual respect and shared responsibility. And when you're able to hold yourself accountable, you're simultaneously building trust and making room for growth in your relationship. And you're also building a type of resilience that surface level connections just cannot survive without. I also want you to know that when you're able to hold your own self accountable, you become someone who is reliable and you're showing up as someone who others can count on. And most importantly, you become someone you can count on. And that type of consistency makes relationships stronger because it gives you that emotionally safe foundation. And I do want you guys to know that relationships are not perfect by any means. You're going to have disagreements, hurt feelings, and misunderstandings. But when you take a step back and ask, how did I contribute to this? You shift from being defensive to emotionally mature. You stop finger pointing and start working towards a solution together. And that, my lovely listeners, is what makes a bond last. Now, I don't want you guys to confuse accountability with self-blame. So it's not about guilt or shame. It's simply about empowerment. Because when you're able to take ownership of your own behavior, you're staying in control of your own growth. So self-accountability will sound like, I may not have meant harm, but I can own the outcome. Or it will sound like, I want to grow from this, not repeat it. But self-blame will sound more like, this is all my fault, or I ruined everything, or they're upset, so I must be the problem. You can tell the difference between the two because self-accountability will leave you feeling capable and like you're focused on growth, where self-blame will leave you feeling defeated and guilty. You'll usually start to engage in negative self-talk as well when it is self-blame. So just be mindful of that. Now, here's the truth that some people do not like to hear, but not every relationship is meant to last forever. And I will say, some endings can be very beautiful when you've been intentional along the way and just had good intentions throughout the entire process. But sometimes Future proofing isn't about keeping something alive, it's about making peace with its natural evolution. And I say that because love doesn't always mean holding on forever. Sometimes love says, I honor what we were, I'm grateful for what we gave to each other, and now it's time to release this. And when you practice that level of emotional maturity, you don't fear the future of your relationships. You start to trust your ability to show up fully, no matter what might happen next. When you are building those connections in your life, the most important question you will ask is, how do you know when it is time to let go versus working it out? And the truth is, every healthy relationship requires effort, but not all of them are worth that effort, if that makes sense. So, how can we figure out the difference? How can we determine what's worth it if we don't know what's going to happen in the future? So, to help you all, I do have a few reflective questions that may help you determine what to do next. So, the questions I have for you, if you're leaning towards it being worth letting go, is question number one: are you the only one doing the emotional labor? If you're always the one reaching out, initiating tough conversations, or doing the inner work, while they stay passive, avoidant, or dismissive, because that's not a partnership, it's performance. It's not only going to feel draining or emotionally exhausting, it depletes you of your feminine energy. So, ladies, I know it's easy for us to step into that nurturer role, but you are positioning yourself as a man's caretaker rather than his romantic interest when you're the one checking in, fixing the energy, and carrying the weight of the relationship. And I'm not saying being nurturing is wrong. I'm trying to get you all to see that not everyone deserves access to that part of you, that nurturing side of you, especially when they can't hold space for you in their life. Question number two: is your peace consistently being disturbed? Now, everyone has moments, but if the relationship leaves you feeling confused, anxious, insecure, or small, your nervous system is trying to tell you something. And if he is disrupting your peace by playing hot and cold or adding drama into your life, he's only capable of holding space for chaotic and low vibrational women. But he's also showing you that he's not capable of embodying the provider and protector role on an emotional level. And a few episodes back, I talked about the importance of having men with a provider mindset in your life when you are embodying your feminine energy, because a man who values your feminine energy will protect the environment that he brings you into. You should feel safe in his presence, not forced to fix it yourself. The third question I have is accountability one-sided or absent? If they refuse to own their part, shift the blame, or say, that's just how I am, growth will be impossible for them. Please listen to me. Growth will be impossible for them. You can't future-proof with someone who's committed to staying in the past. You can't. Question number four: are your values no longer aligned? This is an important reflective question. I mean, all of them are, but it's important to acknowledge that love isn't always enough. If your core values, needs, or visions are pulling you two in different directions, the relationship may just have run its course and it's time to acknowledge it if you have to answer no to that question. The last question, question number five: do you like who you've become around them? If you're constantly dimming your light, shrinking yourself to fit into their life, or second guessing yourself, the relationship is costing you more than it's giving. The relationship is costing you your peace and depleting you of your feminine energy, leaving you with nothing in return. So if you answer no to question number five, you know what to do. Now, I do have some reflective questions if you're leaning towards working the relationship out. Question number one: are you both emotionally invested in growth? Now, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. If you both can take accountability, listen, and adjust, that's a sign of a resilient bond. Number two is their communication, even when it's uncomfortable. If you can talk honestly, even through conflict, and both people feel safe, there's a foundation to build on. So keep moving forward. Number three, the connection still feels meaningful. If there's mutual respect, shared history, and love that's rooted in reality, not fantasy, it might be worth nurturing and putting effort into. Number four, you feel emotionally safe. And I don't mean, can I be myself, but do you feel protected there mentally, emotionally, and spiritually? And the last question. Are they showing signs of real change and not just empty promises? If their past patterns are actually shifting, not just being talked about, you're witnessing real effort taking place. Now, I do have one more reflective question, and I suggest you all use this as a journal prompt because that's what I do. The question is, does this relationship still serve who I am becoming or only who I used to be? And I will leave that in the episode's description if you want to come back to that because, like I said, it's really good for a journal prompt. All of these questions are, but the previous reflective questions I just stated, they're more for like just asking yourself this and just having a conversation with yourself. But this one is more for journal prompting, so you can really just get everything out. Now, before we end this episode, I want to let you all know that when we talk about future-proofing relationships, we often focus on communication, the effort, trust, and now all of that matters. But one thing is the most important, and that is self-accountability through the lens of feminine energy. Not the performative, people-pleasing kind, but the intuitive, emotionally grounded kind. The kind that says, I don't need a dramatic exit to know something no longer feels safe or aligned. I can feel it and I trust that. And when you're in your soft feminine flow, there is a tendency to want to nurture everything and to keep connections alive, to see the best in people, even when the signs are loud. But feminine energy isn't just soft, it's deeply wise. It's the kind of energy that tells you this space doesn't feel safe for my heart anymore. And that energy gives you permission to leave without making a fuss. And for the longest time, I struggled with this. I thought that some big catastrophe had to happen. They had to do me in the worst way for me to leave them, to sever the connection. And something just snapped inside of me, and I was just like, something feels off, and not everything has to be dramatic. Sometimes I just have to listen to my body. I have to listen to my nervous system. I have to listen to my intuition. It just take things for as they are without that big grand finale of doing me dirty. Like, I don't need that anymore. So I had to come to that realization. And I hope you guys, after listening to this episode, it helps you see things a little bit more clearly. So like I said, I've had to do this in my own life with people I considered really close to me. From the outside, everything looked fine. We would have fun. We shared moments, but something would eventually start to feel off. The connections were surface level, and one person in particular crossed a boundary that should have been a red flag. Something I brushed off at the time with a laugh because I honestly just didn't know how to respond. But that moment stayed with me, and it wasn't just that, it was the energy. The way I felt drained after spending time with them, the way the trust never really had a solid foundation. I just never felt like I could truly trust them. And here's the thing, when you're doing inner work, and I mean when you're aligning with peace, growth, and your purpose, your body is going to start rejecting relationships that don't support that anymore. Even if the person isn't actively harming you, the relationship can still feel unsafe. Your nervous system knows, your spirit knows, your intuition knows. And future proofing it isn't just about who's going to ride with you long term. It's about knowing who shouldn't even be in the car with you. So let this episode be your reminder. You don't have to keep pretending it's okay just because you've once laughed it off. You don't have to keep explaining your boundaries to people who've already shown you that they don't respect them. You don't have to keep surface level connections alive just to avoid the discomfort of letting go. In fact, one of the most feminine things you can do is say, this no longer feels right for me, and that's enough. You're not pushing people away. You are just no longer pulling in what doesn't nourish you. And if you're listening right now and thinking of a certain relationship that feels off, trust that. You don't need a checklist. You just need to be honest. Be honest about the relationship being able to support the version of yourself that you're becoming. Or are you keeping it alive because you don't want to deal with what the silence might say? I want to remind you that feminine energy is receptive, but it's also selective. You deserve relationships that feel safe, soft, and soulful, not performative or draining. So take this as your permission slip. It's okay to outgrow people you were never meant to keep. So, whether you're in a season of love, loss, or deep reflection, I want you to remember this. Your relationships don't need to be perfect to be powerful. They just need to be intentional, honest, and capable of growing alongside you. I want to thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone you love. And if you're working on deepening your connection, start small. One honest conversation can change everything. Trust me. And before I go, I want to share this quote with you guys that I found on Pinterest. Relationships aren't built on time, they're built on truth. And when the truth is safe, the connection will last. So until next time, keep living softly and loving deeply. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.